one of the many difficulties to overcome when you work almost entirely by yourself is the steaming process, which typically steaming planks, steaming frames, whatever you'd be steaming for a boat project, you have your steam generator, and then you have a steam box, which is, you know, some distance away from the boat. Oftentimes it's actually outside the workshop or outside the shed or whatever, and there's this stereotypically this sort of mad dash to get your steamed material from the box to where it needs to be and get it clamped in place and bent into place. Now, working by myself, I can't actually do that. There's no way that I'd be able to get something out and onto the boat and clamped quickly enough by myself. So I steam things very close to in place. So like I'll hang a plank with line, or I'll build a temporary shelf for it to sit on very close to where it's going to be, and then I put it in a polyethylene bag, which you can buy. I bought like a 300-foot roll of 12-inch wide open-ended sleeve, essentially, which you can cut whatever length you need. A little bit of heat allows you to seal it up at one end, if that's what you're doing, or to seal around the steam input. What I tend to do is I seal up one end, slide the plank in, and then I bring the pipe in the other end and wrap it heavily with some sort of tape, or do a few constrictor hitches or something like that, just to keep it from venting too much of the steam. It's good for it to vent a little bit, just to so that it doesn't get over pressurized. So the steam generator that I'm using currently is actually I think kind of an interesting design. The earliest credit of that type of design, which is a monotube steam generator, it comes from the Herreshoffs, from, I want to say it was like 1885, 86, something like that, and it was actually a steam generator that he designed to power gunboats of the Peruvian Navy, of all things. And I think that the major weakness of it is that it requires a constant flow of water, which in the winter is going to give me a bit of trouble. But I will come up with something else at that point. But in the meanwhile, the rest of the time, when you can have a constant flow of running water, it's an incredibly efficient design. It's a coil of copper tubing which runs up vertically inside the generator itself, and then a very strong heat source right below. In my case, it's a propane-fired weed burner. It's almost like the reverse of a radiator, in that going through the tubing, the water has a lot of surface area exposed to heat, so it gets going really quite quickly, and puts out a huge amount of really hot steam, which is what you need. And getting it going has been a bit of trial and error. Not having specific plans for certainly anything the size of what would be useful to me. I'm not going to build one the size of what you'd need for a Peruvian gunboat. So having to scale everything down and figure all that out, and I'm still tinkering with it. What I ran into with this plank was that I hadn't actually run this generator very much in cold, windy conditions. I built this generator in, I want to say, April, and I've been using it pretty continuously since then. But we've not had a lot of cold, windy weather And it made it much more difficult to keep it running at peak efficiency, which it's all a little bit of trial and error and figuring out what works. I'm by no means a steam engineer, or even close to that, but it seems as though it runs at its best when it's between 500 and 600 degrees on the outside of the casing of the generator itself. So trying to keep it at that temperature, trying to make efficient use of the propane that I have, ended up deciding that I needed to try, or that I wanted to try to contain the burner better than it was, to try and up the efficiency. So went on a foraging for sheet metal and found this awesome old metal machine shop over in Westerly, Rhode Island, and got a big sheet of 20 gauge plain steel, I think, and sort of fabricated like a skirt for the generator. So I'm hoping that this will make it so that my steaming operations aren't as vulnerable to the weather. And I think this is a pretty good example of the kinds of improvisations and fabricating of specialized tools, and just the sort of things that you have to be willing and able to do a project of this scale. A lot of the time you're not actually going to be putting planks on the boat or frames in the boat or whatever. You're going to be trying to figure out some related technical thing to make a tool work, or to make a tool that will make another tool, or that sort of thing. And there's a lot of that, and fortunately that's something that I very much enjoy about the whole process.
The awful fate will be if Andrew starts to look like me.